Let's continue. Now, the categorization of machine learning is not limited with semi-supervised, supervised and unsupervised learning only. But along with that, there are three or four, ways are there by which you can categorize the machine learning algorithms also. Further categorization, see 14 different types are there. We'll see them also step by step, how exactly the methods are followed. So according to hybrid learning problems, we are having semi-supervised, self-supervised technique, multi-instance learning also. According to statistical inference that we have seen, so we are having inductive learning, deductive learning, and transductive learning methods. Or according to the learning techniques, we use multitask learning, active learning, online learning, transfer learning, ensemble learning. Okay, so not only these two types, these three types, we are having many techniques, many ways by which the categorization of ML system is possible. So let's say how exactly they are done. The first and very interesting technique is called as semi-supervised learning, SSL. Semi-supervised. So you can identify by its name that it's a combination of supervised and unsupervised. So semi-supervised learning is a supervised learning where the training data contains very few labeled examples and large number of unlabeled examples. It means that the data that you provide is containing input output both, plus few are not containing output. So as you can see, in supervised learning we require output both, and in unsupervised learning we require only input. Now if you have the mixture of data, it means that for some amount of data the output variable is missing. Okay, for some amount of data the output variable is missing. So that case, how do we find a solution to this kind of problem? This is what we call as semi-supervised. The goal of the semi-supervised model is to make effective use of available data, not just the labeled data like supervised learning. All data, whether it's supervised or unsupervised, we mix all, and then accordingly we will make it useful for learning some kind of task from the same. So in semi-supervised learning, we are given a few label examples and must make that we can of large collection of unlabeled examples. So even the labels themselves may not be oracular truth that we hope for. Check it out. The difference between both. Here we have supervised learning, that is all labeled data is there, input output both are present in supervised learning, and according to the model is created here. Okay, and in unsupervised learning we have unlabeled data. Okay, and accordingly the model is created to find the similarity within the data set. Okay, and then the third technique, that is semi-supervised learning. Here we have some labeled data and lots of unlabeled data here. So labeled and unlabeled both present there. So with the semi-supervised learning algorithm we model. There are some algorithm like label propagation. With the help of that algorithm, we can find a solution to this kind of problems also. So maybe they are rare situations, but it may be possible that we are having this kind of data sets or this kind of data sets element set. So we can we can predict the label of remaining data with the help of the label of available data. This is called as the semi-supervised learning algorithm. Now, second is self-supervised. Yes, self-supervised is a kind of, it's somewhat similar to unsupervised learning algorithm, that is framed as supervised learning problem in order to apply supervised learning algorithm to solve it. Okay, problem is of unsupervised, but they are using supervised learning algorithm to solve that. So these supervised algorithms are used to solve an alternate or pre-test task, the result of which is a model or a representation that can be used in solution of the original or actual modeling problem. Yes, so they require only unlabeled data. See, data is unlabeled, and to formulate the pretext learning, such as predicting context or image rotation for a target objective, can be computed without any supervision. Without any supervision, that's what we call as the self-supervised learning. Self-supervised learning. See this. Here the images are given, images of cats. Okay, all different rotations are mentioned there. Here we have the automated data. You can read that data. So here we are having label like images of 0 degree. Here we have 90 degree. Here it's at 180 degree. Okay, fine. Now here we have the supervised learning algorithm that we pass. Now to know about it, see the technique is containing labels 0, 90, 180, that is your angle of rotation present there. We'll be applying that X and Y as input to the network architecture given convolutional network here, CNN. And supervised learning technique will be used. Supervised learning technique will be applied by which it can learn the representation inside it and then transfer learning to downstream the task. So it will be used further, use this model further to perform the operations on. This is what we call as this self-supervised learning. We'll decide that algorithm of its own. That's why it's called as a self-supervised learning algorithm. Next, the third part of hybrid is multi-instance learning. Now, multi-instance learning is a supervised learning problem where individual examples are unlabeled. Instead, bag or group of samples are labeled. Means at a time, multiple groups are labeled. Means that all group is given a single label. Another group has given a single label. Like all. May be possible. So that's called a multi-instance learning. So in multi-instance learning, an entire collection of examples is labeled as containing or not containing an example of the class, but the individual members of collections are not labeled. Individual member is not labeled. Set of elements are labeled at a time. So that's why it's called a multi-instance. Multiple different instances of similar situations are present in the bag, in the group of samples. It's called as multi-instance learning. Now you can check it out. In the data set, we have these bags. Okay, and we have these feature vectors. So in this bag, we are having set of elements, first row, second row, third row, fourth, fifth. So what I have set of elements present here. Okay, and this whole group is classified, has given a class 0 or 1. Okay, whole group is given 1. So when you are going to do the predictions, it will be checked that in which particular group that element is present that we are going to predict. In which particular group that element is present, that will be checked. That's called as multi-instance learning. So feature vector is the instance, and we have multiple instances present in the bag. That's why it's called a multi-instance. So we'll use this data, then we use the machine learning classifier. Accordingly, we'll use for the classification, whether it is deceased or normal. Having a disease or it's -1, it's called as normal. This is called as multi-instance learning method. Fine. Yes. Now let's go with this second idea of statistical inference. Now these are the hybrid techniques, basically semi-supervised or multi-instance or self-supervised. Now for statistical inference, again 3 techniques are there. What do you mean by inference? So we have already learned about the inference in first 2 units. So inference refers to reaching an outcome or decision. That's what is inference. And in machine learning, fitting a model and making a predictions are both type of inferences. Both are the inferences. Whether you fit it or you predict it. Once you fit, you build a model. We predict, you use the model. So there are different paradigms used for inference that may be used as a framework for understanding how some machine learning algorithm work or how some learning problems may be approached. Okay, how exactly they work, the paradigms, the methodology, the techniques which is used there, and the learning problem that may be approached, that they are going to solve it. Fine, that's what you are going to find. Now for statistical inference, there are 3 different ways of designing one machine learning algorithm. So you can see this: inductive, deductive, and transductive learning. So inductive inference will be used in the inductive learning. Same case for deductive, and is for transductive also. Let's see the first one, inductive learning. So inductive learning involves using evidence to determine the outcome. Evidence to determine the outcome. So using a specific cases to determine general outcome, like specific to general, specific outcome or general outcome, that can be taken as the output from the inductive learning. So most ML models learn using a type of inductive inference or inductive reasoning, where general rules of the model are learned from specific historical data. That is called as the inductive inference, inductive learning basically. The problem of induction, which is the problem of how to draw general conclusion about the future from specific observation in the past. Okay, so that's called as inductive learning. Now, just numerous of it, we have deduction technique. That's called as deductive inference. Deduction or deductive inference refers to using general rules to determine specific outcome. General rules to determine the specific outcome that we are getting out of this particular algorithm. We can better understand induction by contrasting with the deduction. Just inverse of it. Deduction is the reverse of induction. If induction is going to be going from specific to general, deduction is going from general to specific. Specific to general, general to specific. The simple observation is that induction is just inverse of deduction that we have seen. Now see this, the inductive learning and the deductive learning. Inductive learning, we are giving behavior to it. Okay, behaviors. And that from that behaviors, we identify the rules. Okay, like this. For example, V out is equal to P R2 by R1 into V in. Output voltage is equal to. Okay, this is what the rule created using behavior. Using the observation that we identify, we create the rules. And using rules, we create the behavior. It's called a deductive learning. See this. For example, rule is given, that's present in the book. And accordingly, we observe, yeah, this can be the behavior present there. Voltage, output voltage of this, where you have two resistors and one input voltage given. Accordingly, what can be the output voltage? So using that, we identify. Using this formula, we identify. It's called as the behavior. This is deductive learning. Rules to behavior, inductive learning, behavior to rules. That kind of transformation is present between these two. And using this concept ahead, we are having another concept called as the transductive learning. The third method of which uses the statistical inference concept. So transduction or transductive learning is used in the field of statistical learning theory. Using the field of statistical learning theory to refer to predicting specific example, given specific example from the domain. Specific example is given. From that example we talk about, just like specific to specific is there. We have general to specific, specific to general, and specific to specific. General to general is not there. Okay, so it's a different from induction that involves learning general rules from specific example. Okay, so induction deriving from function from given data. Deduction derive the values from the given function for a point of interest, and transduction deriving a value of unknown function for points of interest from the given data. From the points of interest from the given data. That is called as transduction learning presented here. So if you summarize all kind of things, these are three different type of machine learning technique which are based on statistical inference are like this. We can contrast these three type of inference in the context of machine learning. For example, induction, learning a general model from the specific examples. Deduction, using a model to make the predictions. And transduction, use specific example to make the predictions. So there are three different ideas are used in statistical inference to perform or to build the machine learning algorithms. And you can see this, how they are connected together. Induction, deduction, and transduction. See, examples will be used to create the approximate function. Induction, okay, approximate function will be used to create the values from the function at the point of interest called as deduction, okay, directly. And transduction, directly from example will generate the values of the function at the point of interest. This is what the difference among all these three categories can be seen. Okay, and let's come with the third part. Under it again 5 categories are there. The first is multitask learning. So multitask is again a kind of supervised learning algorithm. It involves fitting model on one data set that addresses multiple related problems. Yes, multiple tasks. So here we have a set of T, P, T, E that we have seen. So we have a set of T present with us. So that's a n number of tasks are present. That's why it is called as multitask learning. We have a set of T presented here. Okay, so it involves devising a model that can be trained on multiple related tasks. But remember, tasks are there, but they are related tasks. in such a way that the performance of models is improved by training across the task as compared to being trained on any single task. So you're going to train on all kind of tasks. And then a generalized model is created. Generalized model that will work on all kind of tasks. So every task is different. So from same data, I'll be having multiple different output generated. Multiple tasks are there. That's called a multitask learning. So it's a way to improve generalization by pulling the examples which can be seen as a soft constraint imposed on the parameters arising out of several different tasks. But as multitask learning. See this. Now, here we used multiple rounds. See, layer L, L minus 1, L minus 2. So from these layers we are going to learn. At layer L, every individual element is separate. Then we group them together and accordingly, yes, say level number 2, multiple instances are created. For first to this yellow, next for this magenta, and next one we have red. Okay, level 2. Then we go for the level 3. Here L, next level. We create multiple 2 instances of it. Again, they are linked together. Like there's a technique called as hierarchical clustering, which is coming under this particular task. Where you use such kind of diagram, then with the help of these clusters are created. It's a multitask learning. Well, we'll have the output generated by this particular methods here in the form of multiple tasks. The second is called as active learning. Multiple names are given, so just try to identify how the internal structure of these algorithms are different. Active learning is a technique where a model is able to query a human user operator during the learning process. Okay, human user operator during the learning process in order to resolve ambiguity during the learning process. Ambiguity present in that. That ambiguity we can resolve into the active learning. The active learning, the learner adaptively or interactively collect training examples, typically by querying an oracle to request label for new points. You find a query, extract the results. So it's again a kind of supervised learning and seeks to achieve the same or better performance of so-called passive supervised learning. Passive supervised learning, where no actions are there actually. We are learning from that, but actions should be generated. So it's called active learning. Although by being more efficient about the data is collected or used by the model, this is what we call as the active learning. Check out the passive learning first. See, if I mention in this presentation also. So we are having raw unlabeled data here. For example, this case, raw or unlabeled data is present. Okay, see this one. This will be passed to the user here. Then user will use the labeled data here, and accordingly the machine learning model will be identified. We'll create that, use it, and then we'll get a trained classifier object created from the same. Labeled data is given and then the trained classifier is created. And let's see the active learning. So in active learning, this raw unlabeled data is given. Okay, we'll have active learner, and from that it will select this selected unlabeled data. User will find a labeled data to it. Then active learner will verify that this data is perfect, it's correctly created, and then will be applied to the machine learning model, and accordingly we'll create a trained classifier out of it. Okay, active. So here we don't have any directly applied to machine learning model. No verification of the data with input output is done there. We verify that here in active learner, and then we will go to generate a machine learning model which contains the labeled data to it, and then trained classifier object will be created. This is we call as the active learning classifier, active learning classifiers. Fine. Yes. Next technique is called as online learning. Maybe you will find this terminology for multiple number of times when you are going to use the machine learning algorithms. So make sure how they are differentiated. So online learning involves using data available and updating the model directly before predictions required after the last observation was made. Real time operations are done over here in the online learning. It's an appropriate for those problems where observations are provided over time and where probability distribution of observations expected is also changed over the time, changing according to the time. Let's say time series analysis, if you have heard about the same. So data mining technique by which you use the data which contains the time also in that. And when the time is present, so using that time, we are going to do is it's predictive analytics on the time. So according to time, if you proceed further with the similar trend, what will happen in future? Okay, that is what called online learning. Therefore, the model is expected to change just as frequently in order to capture and harness those changes. This is called as the online learning. Now you can see this one, our common method that you can see over here. How online learning basically perform operations. See, batch learning algorithm that we have seen, train test split we do, then we use the training data to the model, then validation data from it. That's also we have seen, validate it, and once the model is validated, then model will be created, and after model is created, then we apply the test data set. This is called as the batch learning. Online and batch are inverse of each other. Inverse of each other, remember, and then we'll go for online learning algorithm. Now see how online learning is there. Here we have assumed model, means already predefined model is there, and then accordingly we identified the covariates of the observation, how they are connected, correlated to each other. So with that, predictions are created, and with that we will use an evolved model from the given set of data. So actually response of observation 1 will be used, and accordingly the evolved model will be created, and then the second observation will be used. Like that, online we'll use that data step by step, how they are correlated to each other. Accordingly this data is taken, we proceed further to create a model. Means static classifier is not present over here, which we have used in all the machine learning techniques. Static classifier, that's why it's called online. It is live streaming, it's live running, live operations are performed. That's why it's called as online learning there. And the next one is called as transfer learning, second last. Transfer learning. Transfer learning is type of learning where a model is first trained on one task, and then some or all of the model used to starting point for the related task. Starting point, you see, what's transfer learning? Because you transfer the knowledge from one kind of data to another kind of data. That is what transfer learning is. Okay. Model is first trained on one task, and then some or all of the model is used as a starting point for a related task. Starting point for the related task. That's called as a transfer learning. So in transfer learning, the learner must perform two or more different tasks. But we assume that many of the factors that explain the variations in P1 are relevant to the variation that need to be captured for learning P2. Model on first, predicting model on first data, and will be used for second data. You transfer the knowledge from one kind of data to another kind of data. It's called as the transfer. See this. This is machine learning we use. Okay. Learning system, this data, learning system, fine. And now here we use this data and we use this learning system. Okay. Identify it, transfer the knowledge to this learning system, and build a perfect machine learning and do the predictions on this data set. Like that, new data will be applied and learning system will be created. This is termed as the transfer learning. So knowledge transfer from one set of data, model of one data will be transferred to the second set of data, and accordingly we're going to do the predictions with this particular model created in that. And the last one, which is very interesting to see, and one of the novel and trending technologies nowadays, is called as ensemble learning. Ensemble learning, what is that? It's an approach where two or more models are fit on the same data and predict model together. I combine set up, I can combine. What are the build up ensemble? It's making the ensemble members predictions including unifying and chosen validation state. Now, there are different approaches which are followed in ensemble nowadays. Learning high amount of accuracy machine learning techniques today. Most of the development of referenceable learning combine multiple rhythms together. Is ensemble learning. Land forest, that's what we've seen. Learning algorithm. Under 4 different are there. You can actually here, like we have first model machine learning, second machine, third. Okay, diverse are there. And we have to it. So first will, for example, class 1, class 2, one. Major out of all the process, where highest, okay, what that are generated. So one is highest in that case. So see, 1 1 1 output will be 1. So instead of using single classifier, I'm using 4 classifier of the learning. So 4 techniques are there in ensemble. First is the bagging technique, second is called as voting, third is called as stacking, and fourth is called as voting. Bagging means combining same kind of algorithms together in this way. They are executing parallelly, but they are executing, their objects are created on different set of data. Same algorithm. So I'll divide, let's say 1000 data sets I'm having. So I will use that 100, 100, 100, 100 separately for same kind of algorithm, but it will be created on that data, dynamically created, and then we'll combine like that. So for example, data I'm having, so I'll create first model, second model, third model, fourth model, like all, and then we'll combine. First bagging, second is boosting. So bagging perform operation parallelly, boosting perform operation sequentially. There is a concept called as cost or weights of machine learning algorithms present. So we have to adjust the weights, and where the misclassifications are done, misclassified entries are forwarded to next level to get it classified by adjusting the weights of. This is called as the boosting. Second, sequential are there. First algorithm, take the data, boost it. Second, boost. Third, boost. Fourth, boost. So we boost that data using adjusting the weights and further. So at a time, same algorithm in sequential pattern are used. Fourth, stacking, where we have combinations of both parallel algorithm, and then after that sequential algorithm is given. It's called a stacking. And one more is a voting. When we create diverse set of first decision tree, then new Bayes, then logistic regression, then KNN, then SVM combined together, and out of all they again generate the result and get a majority vote from the same majority vote. This is called as the ensemble learning, ensembling. Fine. Diverse set of predictors will be there that will be used, and accordingly we generate the predictions out of it. This is termed as the ensemble learning. Fine. The last one. Fine. So this is not many ways are. Machine learning is very big field. In that, different kind of methodologies are used to create the classification method, regression method, or the machine learning models also. So as per our requirement, you can choose any one of them. Now, as per our syllabus, we are focusing on 2 kind of algorithms: supervised, unsupervised. So supervised are, again, as we have seen, 2 techniques are there: classification and regression. We have seen the list of algorithms there. What kind of algorithms are supervised category, what are in unsupervised category. Okay, under classification regression again. Okay, in classification, almost many algorithms are used for classification, like decision tree, new Bayes, logistic regression, KNN, SVM, and many are perceptron, neural network. In regression, we have linear regression. Linear regression itself is modified in 10 different ways: linear, multiple, polynomial, logistic, ridge, lasso, elastic net, isotonic, ransack. Many such regression methods are there. Even non-linear regression is also present. And unsupervised clustering techniques are present. K-means, fuzzy C-means, K-medoid, hierarchical, Gaussian mixture, HMM, neural network. Such different methods are there which we can use here. to perform the operation of building the machine learning model. So not many, hundreds of algorithms are there, hundreds of common algorithms are present in machine learning which are used to build the model for descriptive analytics, predictive analytics. We'll talk about that now. What do you mean by descriptive analytics and predictive analytics? That will be helpful for us to understand the different kind of machine learning algorithms today. Fine. Now, yes, let's talk about the idea of predictive analytics, and the second thing we call as a descriptive analytics. What's the meaning of it? That we will see step by step. Now, when I told about the supervised learning method, so supervised learning method is a method by which we use the previous data and we used that data to do the predictions on that, perform the predictions on it. That's why this technique we call it as predictive analytics, predictions. So basically, primary aim of machine learning algorithm is to do the predictions. Right. So predictive analytics will help an organization to know what might happen next. What will happen next? It predicts the future based on the present data available. What is current present based on you do the future predictions. It will analyze the data and provide statements that have not happened yet. Exactly, supervised learning. So if you talk about analytics of two types. Out of it, the first is predictive analytics, which is just like supervised learning. We use the data and we use this data to do the future predictions based on that. It makes all the predictions that you want to know, and all predictions are probabilistic in nature. It's a probability of having this data, not confirmed, because machine learning algorithm is not 100% correct. They are focusing on identifying highest amount of accuracy. That is correct, but maybe it's a probability that the result is this. They are probabilistic in nature. Connected to that, we have another technology called as descriptive analytics. Now, what is descriptive? Descriptive analytics will help an organization to know what has happened in the past. What has happened in the past? It would give you past analytics using the data that we have stored. Descriptions. Okay, for a company, it's necessary to know the past event that help them to make decisions based on the statistics using the historical data. For example, how much money you lost due to fraud and many more. You find the descriptions. General analytics is that you find it. Like for example, how many people have got the first class in my class? I want to find it. Descriptive analytics will help you to do so. Fine. Descriptions, we just fire specific problem is given and accordingly we generate the results. And most of the unsupervised learning algorithms are connected with the descriptive analytics also. We can differentiate what exactly predictions and what exactly descriptions means. See that. Now see, if we check the common difference between descriptive and predictive analytics, like number one, what they describes, that is shown over here. Let's see, descriptive analytics. What happened in the past by using the stored data we can identify. And now, predictive analytics, what might happen in the future. Okay, what might happen in the future by using the past data and analyzing it that we do. So description that we have as a difference between both is this. Okay, first. Second, the process involved in that. Now, in case of descriptive analytics, it involves the data aggregation and data mining processes. Data aggregation and mining. We collect the data at central location, we apply the same function on the whole data. And data mining, we convert that data into information format. This is what involved into data description analytics. Predictive analytics, we require statistics and forecast identification techniques. What things we are involved in that, what exactly the pattern present in that, we can identify with the help of statistical methods. And we use that method to do the forecast operation onto it. That is called as the predictive analytics. Predictions we are done. So in order to do the prediction, statistics is very important. The technique that we have seen in statistics and probability and the linear algebra, that will help us to build this model, robust machine learning models there. Next, definitions. Yes. Descriptive analytics. So the process of finding the useful and important information by analyzing the huge data. It's called as descriptive analytics. Data mining, that's what we have seen. Exactly. Predictive analytics, this process involves forecasting the future of the company, which are very useful. Forecasting and future prediction, which is done there. That's what common difference that we can say is present between these two are there. Third, fourth, volume. How much amount of data you require. We are having with that analytical methods here. See, for example, descriptive analytics, it involves the processing huge data that are stored in the data warehouse limited to the past data. Okay, what are the previous data we have? So based on that, this we are going to make use of it. But in predictive analytics, it involves in analyzing a large past data and then predict the future using the advanced techniques. Okay, maybe the data is real time, maybe the data is already stored. We are going to do the predictions based on that. That is volume. And the fifth one, let's see the examples. Sales report, revenue of company, performance analysis, basic general purpose data analysis that we do. Okay, we are reported, we are identified how our sales are. Okay, where we are good, where we are lagging, where we are perfect, where we have to improve, where you require the improvement. And predictive analytics, like sentiment analysis. What are the sentiments present for the people or the people who have posted something on social media, or credit scoring models, or forecast report of a company? What can be the stock market price in future? I want to predict it. That's the predictive analytics that we can do. Okay, examples. What about the accuracy? Descriptive analytics, it provides the accurate data in the reports using the past data, in the reports using the previous past data. And predictive analytics, the results are not accurate. Remember, 100% accuracy is not there, but it will not tell you exactly what will happen, but it will tell you what might happen in the future. Because what will happen is not possible. Astrologist, we are not that. They are using standard statistical method to do so. So we can identify what might happen. What will happen, that you cannot say. What might happen, it is not 100% correct, 100% perfect, or 100% results are generated by that. It's also not correct there. So it's called as predictive analytics. Just what might happen in future that we can find by using predictive analytical technique. And the last one is the approach that we follow. Descriptive analytics allows the reactive approach, and predictive analytics is having proactive approach. That's what the main difference that we can say present between the descriptive and the predictive analytics here. And if you summarize these two techniques together, so just like descriptive analysis is centered around the presentation of data, visualization to management of insights, while predictive analysis is centered around statistical model which helps to predict the future. Fine. So predictive analysis has more risk as it involves in analyzing what exactly will happen in the future based on the past event, but certain condition may not happen exactly in the future for the same reason. This is what we can say the difference between predictive and the descriptive analytics are present here. Fine. Let's go with the next topic. So this topic is connected with the well-posed learning systems. We have seen the concept of well-posed learning system already, how they are created, how the task we are having, experience we are having, okay, or the P, that is performance matrices that we are having to identify. Now let's use this, and how machine learning algorithms are actually created, that we will see statistically, mathematically, by using the step-by-step methods presented here. This is what we are going to learn about the learning system. Learning is okay, that is great. We also learn, but we are not doctor. We don't know how do we learn. We are having brain, that's why we learn. But we are engineers, so we learn. We'll check how the algorithms will learn by themselves. As per the machine learning definition, they are having learning ability, but how this learning is actually taken place, that's we have to identify and understand here. So there are 5 different steps by which the learning system is created, is designed. Can check choosing the learning experience first. Second, choosing target function. Experience is okay, but what is your outcome variable, response variable? Second. Then third, choosing the representation of target function. How do we represent that target function? Fourth, choosing a function approximation algorithm. And last, designing it finally, means combining all them together and creating a robust design of all. That is the final step. Get this topic in detail, step by step, how machine learning is actually. We have taken all the overview of machine learning systems. We know it now. Now let's talk about design now first. Now, choosing the 20 years. Now, whenever the algorithms are to build, obviously we require a previous data. We have seen that the triangle of machine learning, you should have the previous available. Then only ML system can be created correctly. Now, whether the training exams provide direct or indirect the choices made by the performance system. Previous lecture, let's take an example. Many example in the welding will catch example there. Wait, sorry for the interrupt. I'll continue. Just a minute. So, in the learning problem, checkers induce checkers state and the correct move for each individual checker state, and then the very good. Fine, the movement, yeah, comes there. Now, direct training examples. Indirect examples will consist of the same game of sequences and final outcome of various games played, in which the information about the correctness of specific move early in the game must be inferred indirectly from the fact that the game was eventually won or lost. I won that. So when you have won that, it means that what step you have followed, which step you have carried, you have performed to generate the final result. That step you have to remember, you have to know, you have to identify this particular sequence of steps also. My indirect experience, how we have won, how we are lost. Both, either the outcome will be either winning or losing. Either you will win or you will lose. So outcome, so based on that, what outcome we are expecting? Winning. So to win that, what kind of steps are followed, that we can identify. Indirect experience. The second, the degree to which the learner controls the sequence of training example. How the learner means algorithm is used to learn in machine learning. Now, for example, a learner might rely on the teacher to select the informative board states and provide the correct move for each. Correct move for each learner. So multiple kind of learners are there. So two different learner that we basically use in machine learning: eager learner and lazy learner. Eager and lazy. Eager learner is this which you are talking about it. Lazy learner directly copy the data and make the comparison of it. So eager learner basically is this. So learner might itself propose a board state that find particularly confusing and ask the teacher for the correct move. Ask the teacher for the correct move. Or learner may have complete control over the board states and indirect classifications, as it does when it learns by playing against itself with no teacher is present. No teacher is present. We have already told you, we already taught you, we already given the experience to you. So you find something, you learn something from that. Once the learning is completed, then using that learning ahead, we will build the perfect classifier. We'll create a perfect model of machine learning there. So this is the way that we can control the sequence of learning examples and the degree of the data. Third, now, how well it represents the distribution of examples over which final system performance P must be measured. Distribution of examples means how many winning strategies are there, how many losing games are there. So based on that, the performance measurement is done. So in general, learning is most reliable when training examples follow a distribution similar to that of a future test examples. Let's see examples now. Distribution of samples. We should have balance. The balance means classes we are going to have. Just a minute. Okay. Fine. So we require all kind of situations. Then only a perfect learning is possible. Means the situations where we to learn from all the angles, whether human learning, internet, computer learning is okay. But to measure the performance, we require the human collected data. It's compulsory. Basically, human collected data compulsory because we are automating the human experience in form of a computer algorithm. That's fine. Note that. However, that most current theory of machine learning rests on the crucial assumption that distribution of training example is identical to the distribution of the test example. Identical, I mean, they are same proportion is there. Proportion means outcome variable is same, winning and losing, like that. And accordingly, we are going to build a classifier or machine learning model which will do a better predictive out from the given set of data. Okay, fine. And yes, this is training experience that we are going to choose. So we require a previous data, we require previous observations. They can be computer, they can be human collected, but human collected data is preferred because we are automating the human step. Okay, that human collected data is compulsory. The first step is experience. Make experience should be recorded and stored in the data set format. Once the data sets are created, after we use that data into the computer program, this is okay. But in the experience, what are your targets? See, that what knowledge we will be learning and how this will be used by the performance program. Okay, target functions. What function you have to apply? So in the play checkers game, it needs to learn to choose the best move among those legal moves. See, for example, I'm having one function. Just choose move between B to M. Okay, accept as input any board from the set of legal board states B and produces an output move from the set of legal moves M. B is a board move. So I have to do this one. But to move that, what function is that? What kind of criteria apply? Based on that, this move will be taken. Whether it's a move is legal or not legal. Target function will define that particular move to be taken there. See, since the target function such as choose move turns out to be given the kind of indirect learning experience available to the system, an alternative target function is then an evaluation function that assigns the numerical score to any given board state. So what I mentioned previously, I'm moving from B to M. Fine. And one alternative target function is assigned, which is used to evaluate it. So when you have to apply this, then this will happen. When applying that, then that will happen. Like when I'm moving from B to R. So R is another move that we are going to take over here. So B to M, B to R, two different states are there. We'll identify that which is the best move out of it. Based on that, which is the best move, that will define the target function. That will define the target function. Remember, second step. Now third step. Choosing the representation of the target function. So given the ideal target function V, for example, just in the previous slides, we choose a representation of that the learning system will use to describe V dash that it will learn. V dash. See, like that. For example, in checkers game, we have VB dash, sorry, V dash B, like this. So B is your outcome variable. You are expecting that output from there. X are your input variables. W and based on that we are identifying it. Then W1 X1, W2 X2, W3 X3, go on using it further. So here Wi is the numerical coefficient or weight to determine the relative importance of various board features. That is X of I. These are the number of ith object on the board till n number of elements are there. Wn xn. So you multiply it and then you add. And accordingly, we are determining the perfect learning function v dash of b from this particular data. So this is how a target function can be chosen. Many more are there. Let's see that. So many different methods. Hypothesis should also be perfect. We have talked about hypothesis testing. So when you have to make use of it, hypothesis testing should be done correctly with the data, with your plus minus point as the outcome variables there. Now the fourth step, choosing a function approximation algorithm. Function approximation algorithm. So the task is to build the final machine learning model before creating the final design over here. So each training example given by B and V train B, okay, on board B, which contains the B is a board, V is the outcome variable training data on the board B, where V train B is the training value for the board B. Estimating the training values will be done by this method. V of train of B is equal to V dash of successor of B. With the successor present, so that value can be the outcome of the train variable over here. So adjusting the weights to specify the learning algorithm for choosing a weight Wi to the best fit set of training examples, same here, which minimizes the squared error E between the training values and the values predicted by the hypothesis V dash. We are having hypothesis V dash, which you have created here. Hypothesis, this is your model. X are your inputs. W are the weight that we multiplied. And now, at the end, we got the error present in between that. Error is E. That's called a squared error. Mean squared. Sorry, sum squared error, not mean squared. E is equal to, see, for all the training examples, for every training examples, the summation is done. Like we have obtained B, training data from B minus predicted data. And the square, just like we have seen mean squared error. Okay, mean squared regression analysis, we have seen mean squared error. There we have talked about this idea. Expected outcome and predicted outcome, that we are going to find, and we are finding the difference. After finding the difference, we square it, then we sum it, and we calculate the error. That's called as the sum squared error, not mean squared. It's a sum squared error presented here, and with the help of that sum squared error, you can identify how effective the hypothesis is. So effectiveness of the hypothesis that you have created for the machine learning model will be identified with the help of the error. So this error should be as small as possible. It should be as small as possible. Remember that. Now, going ahead, finally, the LMS weight update rule is used here. You can see here we got this value to minimize the E. Minimize the E means the perfect hypothesis should be created. So what we require, we should have minimum amount of the error present inside it. Okay, so to minimize E, the following rule, that is LMS rule, is used. For each training example of W V train of B, use the current weights to calculate V dash B for each weight Wi using this formula, summation of all we have taken previously. And now W of I is equal to Wi plus eta V train B minus V dash B into X of I. X is input, and V train B minus V dash B, that also we know, and weights are also added, and accordingly that we are going to recalculate a new weights from the given. This is the function approximation. Function approximation, step number 4. And then the final stage, that's a final design. So 4 parts are in final design. First is performance system. To solve the given performance task by using the learn target functions, performance system is, so it takes an instance of new problem. For example, new game as input and trace of its solution, game history as the output. Solution as the output. Based on that, you find a performance. What is the expected outcome and what is your predicted outcome that we can compare for the game, and accordingly performance system will be built and will identify how effectively the algorithm is working, how effectively the same algorithm is working over here. Fine. So critic, second is critic, to take input as history to trace the game and produce the output as a state of training example for the target function. That's also we can do here. And the next to generalizer and experiment generator. So these four parts are there in Final. Generalizer means to take as input the training examples and produce an output hypothesis that is it estimate of target function. Hypothesis that is estimates of target function. It generalizes from specific training examples, like hypothesizing a general function that covers these examples and other cases beyond the training examples, called as generalizer. And last one is experiment generator. So in experiment generator, to take the input as the current hypothesis, that is currently learned functions, and output a new problem, that is initial state boards for performance system to explore. Its role is to pick a new practice problem that will maximize the learning rate of the overall system. That is called a experiment generator. And if you combine all together, you just can see this one. Design of the checkout learning algorithm, how it will be done. Experiment generator, performance system, critic, and the generalizer. So here we have the hypothesis created. Fine. And how they are linked together. So we have the solution trace here, games history, solution trace. Within that, we are going to make use of this data to find the similarity within it. And they are training examples like B of P and V train B1, B2 and V train B2, then B3, then B4. Go on using all training examples will be there. There are generated solution history, and then the generalizer will use that data and will create a machine learning model, hypothesis of it, experiment generator, and after that, when the experiment generator, that model is created, based on the hypothesis, we will will identify the performance of the system here at the end, performance system. So new problem with initial board game will be created. Find that. This is how the machine learning models are basically created. So these are many techniques are actually this technique is present into the Tom Mitchell's book on machine learning. That we can refer, and using that the design is possible in that. Okay, so the same diagram I taken from the same book. You can proceed further. Actually, the detailed things are given. I have summarized all that particular topics here in this particular sessions. Okay, so that's from today's session. If you have any doubts or question, you can ask or you can put in the chat box also. Two more topics are remaining from this unit, that is issues in machine learning and applications of machine learning, that we will talk in detail in the tomorrow's session.
Sir?
Yeah, continue.
How is supervised learning and semi-supervised learning different?
Just a minute. See, in supervised learning, we are already having all labeled data. All label means input output both are there. Correct. And then model is created. And in semi-supervised learning, some data is labeled and some is unlabeled. Means mixture. Just think about that. Key, the output variable is missing. Output variable is missing in some of the data set here. So what we do, we find a pattern in this data. There is an algorithm called as label propagation that we use basically. We use this data to predict the outcome for this. We use this data to predict the outcome for this one. We don't use a standard supervised learning algorithm there. There is no any algorithm like decision tree, random forest, new Bayes. They are not used here. So the mixture of data is there. So this mixture data will be used directly as input to the algorithm. And then accordingly, labeled data, new labeled data will be generated as a predictions of it. That's called a semi-supervised. So when label, unlabeled, both of their combinations are there, that is called as the semi-supervised learning. And only unlabeled, only inputs, unsupervised, both input and output both are there, it's called as supervised learning. So that's what the difference is there. Fine. Algorithms of semi-supervised learning are different, but remember.